Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now, our topic of discussion is the human brain, which is our coordinator, and it is also known as central nervous system. We already discussed that the central nervous system has two parts. One is brain, and the other is the spinal cord. So, in this lecture, we will discuss these two type of coordinators are the components are the parts of the central nervous system. Before this, we already discussed the functional units or the structural parts of the nervous coordination, and that is the neuron. Now we'll discuss the human brain. As the structure shows the different parts of the human brain is divided into three basic parts, that is the forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Further, these parts are divided into subparts, but the three basic parts, that is the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain, these are the three basic parts of the human brain. First of all, forebrain. Forebrain consists of the three parts, that is cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. This is the thalamus portion. Below the thalamus is the hypothalamus, while the largest portion of the brain is in the form of the enfolding, which is known as cerebrum. So, thalamus is the relay station for both the parts, cerebrum and hypothalamus, because it received first information from the lower parts, then it decided which information has to be gone in the cerebrum and which is provided to be to the hypothalamus. That's why it is considered as the relay station of the forebrain. It also involved in the pain perception and sometimes in the sleep-wake cycle. The hypothalamus is lie just below the thalamus and just above the midbrain. It's the midbrain. So above the midbrain and below the thalamus, this is portion which is known as hypothalamus. The big and the very important function of the hypothalamus is to connect nervous coordination with the chemical coordination. Means brain with the glands. So that is why it is a very important bridge between nervous and chemical coordination, and this part also responsible for some feelings like pleasure, pain, rage, sorrow. So feelings are also controlled by hypothalamus. Next is the largest portion of the brain, which is cerebrum. Cerebrum is divided mainly into two parts, that is the interior portion, this portion is connected with the olfactory lobes, and olfactory means smell. So the interior portion is related to the smell, while the posterior or the remaining part is known as cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex, the outer portion is known as gray matter, which consists of the cell bodies and non-myelinated axon. Non-myelinated mean having no myelin sheath, while the internal is the white matter, and white matter consists of myelinated axons. And these are present normally in the form of the lobes, having certain lobes, like this is the frontal lobe, the upper part is the parietal or upper occipital lobe, that is behind at the neck portion, and temporal lobe at the side, like upon the at the upper part of the ear. So frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal, these are the different lobes of the cerebral cortex, having information or connection with the certain receptors and giving in the form of the table in your book, and that information is very important in examination point of view. So you people must study that table and the function of each lobe, the performance of the each lobe. After forebrain, we discuss these three parts. We come to the midbrain. Midbrain is a smaller portion which is present between the hindbrain and forebrain. So, like the thalamus, this midbrain is a connection, is a bridge between these two, is a relay station between these two parts, between forebrain and hindbrain. While the hindbrain consists of three parts: cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata. This is the cerebrum part of the cerebrum part. These are the two present in the form of the two lobes and is known as cerebellum. Pons, the upper part of the medulla oblongata, different neurons or nerves are in collection, and this is known as pons. While this lower portion is known as medulla oblongata, on posterior side of which is the posterior continuation of the spinal cord. Mean after the neck we call it spinal cord, but above the neck it is medulla oblongata. Cerebellum is the part of the hindbrain which is responsible for the position, for the maintaining the position or coordination in muscles during different movement, during different position. It provides us the movement coordination in the muscles. Pons is a part which is present between the cerebrum and medulla oblongata, and it assists the medulla oblongata in its function. Sometimes it is also responsible for the sleep and wake cycle, while medulla oblongata, the posterior anterior continuation of the spinal cord, and this is responsible for the internal functions like controlling the breathing, some reflexes. So internal feelings, internal functions of the body is controlled by this part of the brain. The next part of the central nervous system is the spinal cord. Spinal cord is the posterior continuation of the medulla oblongata, and brain and spinal cord both covered at outside by a special membrane which is known as meninges. And this meninges protect the brain and the spinal cord from outer side. Spinal cord consists of two portions like the cerebrum of the brain, and that is the gray matter and white matter. The butterfly shape, this is the gray portion of the spinal cord, and it is known as the gray matter. It consists of cell bodies and non-myelinated axons, while the white matter surrounding the gray matter, it consists of myelinated axons. In the spinal cord, the two mixed nerves arise. Like this is the mixed form of the neurons, having the axon of the receptor, the axon of the sensory neuron, and axon of the motor neuron, both. But here, when it reaches toward the spinal cord, the sensory axon going toward the dorsal root, while the motor axon is coming from the ventral root. This is the ventral portion, like here it is shown, and this is dorsal portion. The dorsal portion receives the axon of the sensory neuron, and the ventral root receives the axon of the motor neuron. So mixed nerves come toward first the white matter, then it goes inside the gray matter. In the gray matter, like the brain, interneurons are present. When it give a message to this part, the interneuron connect the spinal cord portion. Then the message of the spinal cord is given to the interneuron again, and it give it to the motor axon for the further processing. Spinal cord have 31 pairs of spinal nerves which are known as mixed nerve. As I told you that this is the mixed nerve because having both the axon of the sensory and motor neuron. So 31 pairs of neurons arise from spinal cord, and 12 pairs of nerves arise from the brain. Spinal cord function. What is the function of the spinal cord? One is the reflex action, simple reflexes, the sudden actions which are done in our body are performed by spinal cord, while the second function of the brain, the spinal cord, is to connect the body and the brain, because it is the backbone which surround the spinal cord. So from all the body, information are first gone to the spinal cord, and then spinal cord give it to the brain. So in between the brain and the body, the material or the informations are passed from the toward the, like this is the brain, and posteriorly the spinal cord is present the back. From all the body, information are given first to the spinal cord, and then spinal cord give it to the brain. So it is a connection between the brain and rest of the body.